After I retired, they put this in. This is for the lazy man. I once upon a time used to own an arena football team. In order to compete with the big four, I thought, what would differentiate me? And I thought we needed to be more philanthropic than anyone. And so before we sold a ticket or played it down, I took our first $100,000 out of my pocket and we put it out into whoever needed something. We were Robin Hood. But my partner and friend who lived there and was born there, he sought out for me what I now know is the Michael Jordan of the issue of homelessness, and Sister Mary Scullion. And he went on my behalf to meet the Sister of Mercy. And he said, I work for John Bon Jovi. And she said, I work for God. And so when I met with Sister Mary, I wasn't being a wise guy, but I said, what would it cost to refurbish one row home? She told us, I said, I'm really inclined to talk to you about the block. She chuckled and I said, it's not about money. It was about if we can bring back a street, we bring back a neighborhood brings back perhaps the town. And in that case, it was Philadelphia. So that began the journey in homelessness, because again, I realized it can affect anyone and everyone at any time, and we all learned through the economic downturn how quickly fortunes changed. And then that led us to the second phase, and we were watching a television show when Dorothea conceptualized what became the Soul Kitchen.
I became obsessed about this idea of having a restaurant where there were no barriers to eating a delicious restaurant-style meal. So our idea was that if you could come, it wasn't pay what you want or pay what you can. We asked those who were unable to afford a donation to spend time with us, volunteer, help around the restaurant, and then the paying customer comes with their family and they eat for their meal, they eat their meal and then they pay it forward and pay for someone else's meal.
Leaving a 20 on the table covers your meal and pays for somebody that's there in need. Take out of your mind's eye just folks who may have to come in because of mental illness. Forget about what you see in the movies about what somebody in need. The in need are the working population of our communities. They're the waiters, they're the bus drivers, they were the guys in the limo company that were no longer driving limos in COVID. When we had to shut down in COVID, I was back at the sink again washing dishes, because those are volunteer positions in our restaurants, and because we couldn't let anyone in, it was all takeout. We saw again what the blue collar community who could no longer make ends meet because of COVID. So in our restaurants, you'd never know who you were sitting next to prior. You
or who was washing the dishes.
And the people in the community were all participating. There was stigmas attached about, oh, I'm not going to go there because it was unfamiliar to someone who didn't realize that's where your neighbors were. It's a beautiful farm-to-table community that we live in, and the restaurant, the atmosphere of the restaurant. There's no government subsidies. There's no institutionalized cans of stuff. It's all good and good for you.
We have 3 paid staff at our restaurants, and the person who works the front door, everyone thinks she's a host or a hostess, and she's actually a trained therapist. So she's meeting with people and talking to them all the time, and they don't realize it. We also partner with MHA, which is Mental Health Association, and have someone on staff 2 days a week, so they're meeting with them and just, working with people, meeting them where they're at and trying to get to the next level. We're not tracking because we don't do intake. I'm not sitting there saying, okay, what is all your, because we don't take government money, and and it's also traumatic to relive your experience every time, to ask somebody constantly like, okay, now you have to tell this person because they're calling to get you into a hotel where you could live, and can you relive that trauma you just had? So, we just try to make it as seamless and as warm and fuzzy as possible. It's always a warm handoff, not where we're filling out forms to track you.
But the internal conversation is how do we help the people? So we hire somebody who's a therapist to be the hostess. It's all happening, but they don't have to realize it.
Yeah, we're not advertising that, except we just did just now. So now,
So you mentioned pay it forward. How does that philosophy, that seems to be a kind of an underpinning of what you guys do?
Yeah.
Well, I think, John will always say, you can build somebody a house, but how are they going to then pay for that house? It's about job training. It's about resources so that they continue to stay in their home. And it's the same thing with their food. We can feed them, but I have a good friend who always says, feed the line and shorten the line. So what can we do? And so we are empowering them to take action and help themselves get to whatever their next level might be.
What, in your eye, what would this look like in 10 years? What are some goals?
Out of business.
That would be great.